So in today's video, I'm going to discuss why you should publish papers during your PhD. And this is a topic which is somewhat debatable because there are some people from the old school, faculty typically, who believe that you should write your thesis and then you should publish some papers based on this PhD work. And this was the way things used to be done in the old times, in the classical periods. And some people still continue with this thinking. Now I will tell you some of the negatives about this approach and why you should publish your paper while you are doing your PhD. Now the first thing is that writing papers hones your research skills. And contrary to the perception of many people that people first do the research and then they go and sit down and write the paper, it's actually a parallel process. So the best way to do research is to have a plan for the research, have a research proposal, then you essentially go and conduct some aspects of this research, get some results, look at the results, make some figures, tables and so on. And then if you feel these results are substantially noteworthy, then you go ahead and write a draft paper or a skeleton paper. And at this point, when you write the skeleton paper, you also need to fill out some of the different sections such as the motivation, references, formulation and so on. And when you write this particular draft paper, you will get many concepts about how to improve your work further and how to go and do some new research. So during this period, you may realize that it would be nice to make a graph with computational times taken by the different computer methods. For example, if you are doing such type of research. Then you go back, you run these cases, you add them to the paper, you rewrite this draft, and you continue to go back and forth between your research and your paper till you reach a draft which is reasonably good for submission. Now typically this process can take weeks if not months, and this is the way research develops, and then it leads to a journal publication or a conference publication. Now this is of course the typical strategy of doing research. Now I will tell you why the papers are useful for a PhD student. The first thing is that when you send your thesis for review, or the thesis is reviewed within the department, many people will look at the papers published from the thesis. So this is a form of signal processing or feature extraction they are doing on your thesis. So your thesis may be some 250 pages long, and this may lead to 3 journal papers. So by perusing these 3 journal papers, or even looking at the names of the journals and the titles, most people can figure out what exactly you have done. So this is a typical data science tactic which people use to peruse any large body of work. Essentially, you diminish this particular body of work into selected features which you can then study. So if the people see that you have published a few papers in good journals, then they generally decide that your thesis is a good piece of work, and the chances of your thesis getting a good review become more. Now the second aspect is that papers make your supervisor's task simpler. So if you have a PhD supervisor, this person is also under some pressure as to when to submit your thesis. And the fact that you have published 2 or 3 journal papers makes this task much easier for the supervisor, because then he is not just relying on his own judgment, but is also relying on the judgment of the referees who have already perused the work and have let it be published in journals. Now I have seen in many cases that it is easier to defend a PhD thesis if you have published some papers from it, because anytime you present a set of results and work to a particular committee of PhDs who are your professors, or they may be external referees, these people are going to put on their black hat and they are going to critique this as thoroughly as possible. And in fact, if you have no papers at this point, they may feel that they can even reject the thesis. So this is often the case, that when theses get rejected, it's because they may have no publications from the thesis, and therefore the work has not yet been reviewed by a single person. And therefore this is essentially the first review the work is getting, which is through the PhD defense, and that is not a particularly good situation you want to put yourself in. Now, there are many universities where the thesis is sent out to different referees around the world, and in this case the foreign referees often look at the list of publications first, because they may not be familiar with your university, they may not be familiar with the standards of your university or with the research culture in your country. And therefore the journal papers act as something which lets people compare across universities, countries, students, continents, and so on. So for example, if we have a student from a normal university who has published 5 papers in good journals, and a student from a top ranked university who has also published 5 papers from his work in good journals, then we can essentially say that these people have done a similar level of contribution to the field. And this is one way to escape the problem of reputation. So essentially, if you are from a university which may not be extremely well known, then it's a good idea to publish a few papers. So this will not only raise the quality of your own thesis, but it will also raise the quality of your department, university, and country, as the case may be. Now, one of the simple ways to write a thesis is that if you have published 3 to 4 journal papers, and these have been in a pattern where there is a clear growth taking place in these papers as far as the research work is concerned, then these papers can become the middle chapters of your thesis. So essentially you take out the descriptive portions from the papers and write introduction and formulation chapters, and then you collate the result sections into some different chapters, and then at the end you have a conclusion chapter. So if you have published 3 to 4 journal papers which are reasonably extensive, then it is very easy to take these documents and create a thesis out of them. And this could be done in Microsoft Word, this could be done in LaTeX if it's a technical thesis. And so essentially you just have to change the particular style of these documents, and lo and behold, your thesis is ready. So I hope I have made clear some of the aspects about why you should publish during your PhD and not wait to write a great thesis and then to publish papers from that. Of course, there is also the practical issue that if you are applying for jobs in terms of faculty position or postdocs, papers are something you need to put in your resume or CV to get these jobs. And in many cases, even if you are applying for a company job, even they would like to see some journal publications here, because when they are taking a PhD student as a person in their company, they typically expect this person to have certain skills in terms of writing, proposal writing, writing reports, some papers, conference papers, or even reviewing the work of people which they can use in their particular company. Now, of course, I will also caution you that you should not write too many papers in your PhD. So I have seen that people who have written more than 10 journal papers in their PhD sometimes face some problems from the committee members, and these are again largely due to reasons which are related to the personal predilection of these committee members, that these papers may not be of great quality because the numbers may be too large, and this would vary from field to field. So you need to find out what is the typical number of papers published by people in your field and try to go to the mean level. You can go slightly more and less than the mean, but if you go more than 2 sigma from the mean, then you start creating problems in the committee members which are more due to psychology and sociology than due to science or anything related to merit. So keep this fact in mind also, because I have seen this in several cases. So I hope this video was useful to you, and please stay tuned to my channel for more such videos. Thank you very much.